Good morning. I'm going to give a few minutes for everyone to get on. All right, got a few more people jumping in here. So Wayne and Sharon, since you guys are both on camera, you're going to be masterminding with me today. That's what's going to
Oh
happen.
no.
And
Okay,
Jody joined you. There you
cool.
go. Everyone who's on camera, like I'm getting all of you today.
How you been?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I can't complain too
I'm in
much.
the Chirag Shah coaching program, so
So life
all
is
is
good,
good.
right? That's it. There you go. That's great. All right. So I was thinking kind of, I don't know who was on, exactly who was on last week's session or not, but I feel like the first few sessions that I did, we kind of like stopped, even though we didn't get through everything. And then we're picking up a new topic the following week. I kind of wanted to go back. I know Shrug is talking a lot about seller engagement this week, and I'm sure there's a lot that we can all talk about in that. I'll probably pick up on that more next week. So today I kind of wanted to go back. So the last Wednesday we were talking a lot about buyer engagement and really how to make sure that we're keeping buyers, exactly what we said, as engaged as possible, but really like what that means for us and our processes, because I do feel like a lot of the time we're presented with great opportunities, either that's being with people who say they want to work with us, but then maybe us not capitalizing on that or following up enough, maybe being presented with a great opportunity in an open house, kind of knowing that maybe we ran somewhere after that, which is fine, and we didn't follow up as best as we could. Maybe putting somebody in a collection, but not making that collection look as great as it could, or staying as on top of that collection as possible. And I think sometimes I don't need to see a show of hands. I'll raise my own hand because it's for sure happened to me before, of maybe complaining about not having either enough business or not having clients listen to us or trust us as much, and almost being very quick to blame the client instead of doing a little bit of a self-reflection of what are the parts of maybe that process that we could have done better to have avoided things getting combative when we go to make offers, having those conversations be, well, I don't want to bid that much, or I don't want to release certain contingencies. And I think a lot of the time it's because somewhere in the process we didn't gain their full trust. So really making sure from the beginning, like, how can we make sure people are as engaged as possible so that we don't lose them to another agent, or when it does come time to make an offer, they're making the right offers to be successful. So last week we talked a lot about really like I think, initial scripts kind of how to get people into a collection, because I do feel like that's the first step in a lot of this. And we all had great conversations about tips and tricks on how to do that. I will have an email from Kathy, who shared a wonderful email template with us last week. That is going to be linked underneath the recording from last Wednesday's session. So go and take a look at that. It's a really great way of kind of introducing that technology to clients. Because again, when we're talking about collections, it rolls off the tongue because we know how amazing they are, but sometimes it gets a little lost in translation to the client of what exactly are we trying to pitch to them to get on. So that's why a lot of the times they'll remain on the Zillows and Redfins of the world, because we didn't do a good enough job of kind of explaining what the benefits are to them of being on collections instead. So where I wanted to take this today is kind of the next step of what Shrug talked a lot about in last week's call of buyer engagement, which is kind of once they're in the collection and you actually get to maybe meet them in person, sometimes for the first time, if that consult was not in person, what all of us kind of do when we're making a tour for somebody, and how we go about that first initial time we have somebody for a couple hours, what works for everybody in that. So if you want to talk about how you share a tour with a client, how you map out a tour for a client, what your process kind of looks like with that. And then second part of this, just so everyone can hold me accountable for making sure we talk about this, what are we doing after the tour, especially after that first tour, to really make sure that we are documenting their feedback properly, and making sure that we also are showing them that we did learn a lot about them in that process. We didn't just take them through homes and they didn't work, so they didn't make an offer, so we don't say anything. And again, I don't need to see a show of hands. I know people do that. I know we're not taking as much advantage of those opportunities of when we just had someone in person when they're really hot, to trot, so to speak, in that moment. How can we capitalize on that as much as possible? So that's all my talking for the day. I'll only talk a few times. But does anybody want to share a little bit about what that process looks like for them and what works?
I think for me is the ability to communicate with them inside collections. We're having this like conversation as to, let's say I've showed them a few properties. And then in the collections, I have an opportunity to ask like what their feedback, what did they like about it? Can they see themselves living in this home? And I have a record of it so that it eliminates certain homes that I'm showing them. Like I'm not showing them homes that they don't want to see. And
Right.
that's all documented in the collections.
Love that. Anything else work for people?
Hi, this is Colleen.
Okay, hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
When I'm at the end of my presentation with them, when I meet with the buyers, I talk about collections and I show it to them. And then I show them the app and I get them to download the app. And, a lot of buyers are younger and, they like to text, they don't like to talk on the phone. And I explain to them how it works. And I say, if you see something in the collection that I've set up for you, all you have to do is hit this button right here and it'll, um, I'll get a notification that you're interested in this particular house. Or maybe the showing is very soon and you want me to, help show it with, attend the showing as well. And that seems to work. They really like it. But I also explain how the advantages is that you can write to me like, no, this isn't going to work. Nope, not big enough, whatever. And then I can delete it so that we don't waste each other's time. And
Right.
the last couple I had, they were young, maybe late 20s, 30. And yeah, the wife was very engaged. And I said, well, what do you think about this house? And she would say, oh yeah, I really like that. Let's see if we can get in for an appointment. And then sometimes she would just say, nope, doesn't work for us. And I said, okay, great, move on.
Right. Yeah. So I think, you have to, I think the main takeaway too is like, first of all, you have to be comfortable with the technology, comfortable enough with the technology to be able to actually get people on it themselves. And not trying to call everybody out, but I think there have been many times where we don't even know what it looks like from the consumer version, but we're trying to tell people to get onto a collection. If we don't even know what that looks like, so when they call us and say, Kate, which button do we push here? If I don't know the answer to that, not a great sign that I'm good at getting people engaged in this tech. So really making sure that you're comfortable with what it looks like from their perspective so that you can also kind of meet them where they're at visually when they're bringing that up. And then the second part of that is just being, if you want them to be engaged, you have to be engaged. So whether that's also like one tidbit too that I tell people, put a time block in your day every day for an hour to run through all your collections, make sure they're cleaned up. If you're somebody who shares all the listings with people, make sure you're cleaning that out. If you're someone who does more of like the review and hand pick, meaning it has to filter through you for you to then push the listings through, make sure you're staying on top of those daily because very quickly a week goes by and maybe maybe on their version, on the consumer version, it hasn't shared anything from your side yet. So make sure you are doing that. Maybe if you learned a piece of information about a property that they might not know, or if a deal maybe fell out of contract, something like that, make sure you're sharing that in the comments because all that information is going to be really helpful. When it comes to sharing like a tour with somebody, does anybody have something that works really well for them, like a certain email they send to share the tour, a certain way that they're mapping out a tour for somebody? Anything on that front? No, we all suck
I
at
have
tours.
used the tour and it's been fantastic because it maps out the route for you. Like,
Yep.
I don't have to figure out which house to go see first. It actually maps it out. So for me and the client, it's very helpful because usually they're following me in their own car. So they
Right.
already know which properties we are going to go see next. So yeah, I love that tool, the mapping.
Yeah.
Hey, Kate,
Hey,
how are you?
good. How are you?
Good. Hey, maybe I'll ask Wayne and you both. I know you and I had on a previous call months ago talked about the tour feature. And
Hmm.
have there been any enhancements? Because Wayne, I'd love to know how you're sharing it with your clients. Because I found out I thought it was going to be as easy as we all talked about the Compass app and sharing the app and everything's in one place and one uh, platform. But with the tour feature, they have to click the email link and then use and go back and forth in and out, but yet we're telling them to follow the Compass app where they can access the property data and everything. So it seemed kind of disconnected. Has there been any updates yet or anything that I've missed in the last 6 months or so where that's been enhanced?
I'll speak to, I do remember our conversation on that. I don't think so from my end, but I think
Okay.
usually on like the actual day of the tour, and if anybody else has advice for this, please jump in. Like I think I told you, I'll either share it like a PDF with them, I'll have one printed
Mhm.
out for them to follow. And I'm also very, this is like one thing I will say, the tech is great, but at the end of the day, this is why AI, I personally don't think is going to be able to replace us, because when we have people in person on tour, I feel like they're coming to me for a lot of that. When we're walking around and they say, what's the price of this one again?
Mm.
I'm the one who needs to know 1495. I don't want to be looking back at the sheet. I don't want to have to tell them if it's septic or well or what the taxes are.
Mhm.
If I'm seeing 3 or 4 things with them, I try and memorize as much of that as possible. This way it kind of rolls off, the tongue a little bit easier. And I think that's kind of when you're grabbing people's attention too, keeping them engaged. So I wouldn't be so concerned about it, but definitely like when they're following in the car, it's nice for them to be able to either just plug it right back into the app, go back into the collection, which they can do on the app, and
Mhm.
and look at that. So I wouldn't be overly concerned with it, but definitely make sure you like how you're sharing it with them, either like that digital tour sheet or just sending them the PDF so they know what they're going to see.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to share one more thing because I had a really successful tour this past weekend. So I'm going to share it with you guys. I had people coming in from California, did not have them for a super long time, and they really are on a time crunch because the wife is pregnant. So they really were hoping to find something this weekend or at least solidify the area they wanted to buy in. They were going to like 6 different towns, not super far from one another, not super different from one another, but was still important for me to kind of know what am I going to do to really engage them on this tour. And I knew what I had to show them was not amazing with the holiday weekend in our area. So I had kind of mapped out very carefully like the things that I wanted to drive them by, like in these certain towns and things I really wanted to point out, mapping out, stopping for a coffee at the beginning, practicing a walk because I knew like walkability was super important to them, making sure we had enough time for that to actually do that walk and talk and get to know each other on that. And then making sure we were passing all the schools that they were interested in so they could kind of map out how far it was going to be. We had lunch at the end of it. I asked them, what do you like? She was vegan, so we had to kind of work that into there. So there were a lot of things that I kind of worked into those 3 or 4 hours. And by the end of it, I had met them for the first time in person at 11 a.m. By 3 p.m., we ended up not going forward with the offer for another reason because of the house. They were already willing to go $150,000 above ask on a house, waiving every single contingency. And they were saying comments like, Kate, whatever you think, that's going to get us the house, do your thing. And I think that that's like a perfect kind of, not to toot my own horn here, but I spent so much time really thinking about like, how am I going to get them engaged and trust me in these 3 hours that I have with people? Because I knew I might not even meet them in person before they actually buy a house. They might be buying it over video tour. So really like thinking very carefully about what am I going to do with the time that I have with them. I also made sure that the tour had a calendar invite in there so they knew not only the houses we were going to go see in the calendar invite, but the place we were meeting at. And then underneath each of the houses before we got to the next one, what are we going to be passing by? Because I had them behind me, so I, can't always talk on the phone with them or whatever. I let them know that like anything we're passing when my flashers go on, I'm not breaking down. Don't worry about me. I'm just telling you to look to your left and your right. So I really tried to like take a lot of thought into, what is going to make a great tour for them. And by the end of it, they found 2 towns they'll definitely buy in. I got to kind of figure out where their head, where's their head at. And I didn't spend the whole tour being concerned about making a wrong turn or, oh, should I go show them the school? I didn't think about that. I took the time to do that before. So I know I said I wasn't going to talk, but I really feel like I was like, wanted to report back to you guys of doing a great thought out tour and how great of an engagement I can have with people after that, so that the trust was built that day. It wasn't about finding the house. It was about building that trust with them. So really making sure that we're taking these opportunities. This is like what I'm talking about with people, and making the most of our time with them. Those people will definitely buy when they find the house, when they in the right town with the walkability, whatever, they're buying, and it's going to be with me. And I did that all in 3 hours. So that's really like a great kind of, I think, show of like taking the time, using the tech, kind of mixing everything together in there, starting them out in the collection a few months ago of like a perfect world, what things could be. So anything else for people that like they do on tour that they feel like really makes it like an enjoyable day for people, or follow-ups that you do afterwards to kind of keep that level of engagement? Anything you feel like you want to work on or that doesn't work for you that you want advice on from people? Great. This is so
Since
fun.
no one's talking, I haven't done a tour in a long time, but what was the
Yeah.
flashers? You put flashers on for what, when you want them to see is
When I want them to look to like their left or their right, so that they know if I don't have
For-
people in the car anymore, then they know what we're passing.
so you want them to look left or right to see something in the town
Yes.
that you want them to see.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Instead
that's
of
cool.
just like
That's a great
flying by
idea.
it.
Yeah,
That
cool.
was a my mom thing. I learned that from
I
her
like
very,
that.
because I'd be the one hitting the flashers in the car. She's like, hit the flashers. This is the high school. So
That's great. I love that.
small tidbit. So take
Yeah,
away
I
any.
love that too. I'm gonna try that. That's so cool. Like
Right.
it's almost
Who
like,
knew?
okay, pay attention. We're going by the school, or a park or
Great
a
restaurant,
bike trail.
anything like that, and that's again, like that's very specific to like the suburbs where you're driving. If you're in a city where you're walking with people, my point is just really maximizing, the time that we get with people. I think sometimes we take that for granted, but like that is the time where you can connect with people. What you say and the connections you make in that time, especially at the beginning of a relationship, is what causes the rest of it to be so successful. But if we feel rushed through tours, or if they just came in and I took them to 3 houses and, well, sorry, this is what I have to show you. Like, okay, well, I didn't learn anything about the towns, anything really about you, anything about your process, but the way that we kind of mapped it out, having a time to have a coffee or a lunch with somebody during those times can be a great time to learn so much more about them that really leaves them feeling like they had a great feeling with you. It wasn't so much about what you said, it was how you made them feel. And that's what I try and focus on a lot. Yeah, Colleen.
Hi again. One of the things I like to do is after we see houses, if there's a couple of them, I say to them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you really, really love the house. How would you rate this house? Or condo, whatever it is. And so they come back at, okay, so why did you give it a 5? So you can understand more about what they like and what they didn't like.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love that. And I think maybe building off of that idea too for you is like if you have a set email template that goes out, or maybe like a Google form or something where you're kind of like creating your own scale of things that you want to know, so that they actually know like, okay, what does a 5 on this scale mean to you? And kind of like, how do you translate that? So you can kind of create a system for it. Might be really helpful. I think that's such a great idea.
Right. I typically do it in person, like after
Okay,
the
yeah.
tour, because it's fresh in their mind.
Yeah.
I mean, of course you could do it in writing, but lots of times people won't answer, do a survey, or if they think it's
Yeah.
going to be long. So I just ask them personally. And I kind of prep that too. I say, after we see a property, I usually ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the property for your needs? And then that's when they know that I'm going to ask them that.
Right.
So it's like a soft close, I feel, and
Yeah.
it tends to work. It helps both parties.
I love that. I think that's great.
Thanks.
Kate, I would share that my prior life before officially being in real estate in Texas was my wife had relocated 5 times. I did it 3 times. My last relocation in corporate America, we saw 63 houses in 3 days.
Wow.
And do you think I had a flipping clue where I was even looking at the
No.
houses? Absolutely not.
Crazy.
So part of my passion in coming into real estate was changing that strategy. Who cares about the house if you don't love the community that you're part of? So
Totally.
now granted, this all goes with time being flexible, but whether it's a relocation with a corporate relo or even somebody moving from state to out of state, I spend the first part of my time with like Chirag's motto of Med C, understanding who they are, what they are, and what matters to them in living life. And then either virtually or in person, we'll spend the time talking about which communities meet your lifestyle. Then we worry about the house last. House is a commodity. We can find a house in any one of these suburbs, but if you buy your favorite house, but you hate where you live, you're going to dislike me and you're going to have distaste for the process.
Totally.
So I spend the first day if possible, because Dallas Fort Worth I know is not like everywhere, but it's like the size of like 4 New England states, and we've got 8 million people, and it's spread out. I forget how many square miles. I'll find out what it is that their lifestyle is and what they want and need in living life, commuting to work, not commuting, restaurants, all those things. We will actually spend the day driving around. Then I'll show them a couple other areas that actually meet what they want, but they weren't even looking at those areas. Then we'll find the communities or the suburbs, 2 or 3 that they want. Then we worry about finding the house.
Mm.
Love that.
Yeah,
Like, that would resonate so well with me.
yeah, I totally agree with you, Ryan. I do that too. San Diego is such a dog community. People love their dogs. And that's one of the questions I asked. I said, hey, you have any pets? Do you like to ride a bike? I want to know about their lifestyle more than anything else. And they really appreciate that because then they start to connect with you and you drive them by this great dog park. Oh, you have a dog. What kind of dog do you have? I have the perfect place for you to walk your dog. And it's not far from the homes that you're interested in. And I think that really resonates with people because it is about lifestyle for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like even right now, just talking about this, and this is like feedback I think I want to bring back to Shirag as well. I think so much of like coaching and so much of what we're all talk about so much right now is like about bettering our process online or having a great email template for someone or knowing how to use the Compass text so well or something like that. But I feel like if we go back and actually think about like what are we doing when we have people in person, there's not enough coaching or us chatting about like what are we doing when we have them in person. Sometimes I feel like, especially since COVID, we almost get nervous, and I'm like, this is our job. Our job is about connecting with people in person. So I also would love to kind of continue to build on this and chat a little bit more about like what we are doing with people on that front. And that's like why I think talking about client events are so great. Like anything that you ever do in person, when you go and have dinner with people afterwards, catch up and over coffee, instead of just how many times we've done Popeyes and we're like, please don't be home. Please don't be home. It's like, no, be home. Like you should be home when I come and drop off a pie. Like I want to have that connection with you. So focusing maybe a little bit more on the old school part of the business, which is why I think, we all got a great reputation to begin with and why we have a profession is how can we capitalize on that as much as possible? So if that, to me, that just seems like it's such a, an obvious thing here that we could do a little bit better on is kind of providing a little bit more coaching on that rather than just the behind the scenes of the client experience, if you will. All right, we've like 5 minutes left. Anything else anybody wants to add to this? Anything else someone wants to?
Hey,
Yeah.
this is Arash Shirazi from the DC
Hey, how are
area.
you?
How are you? Thanks for
Good.
this. This is really helpful. So many nuggets. I'm on a walk, so a little out of breath. But
That's
my
good.
question to everyone is about open houses. I've just been doing a lot more open houses. I built my business on doing open houses. But lately, I can have a long conversation with someone, get their contact information, send them a buyer presentation, have an email template that I use, and then I just don't hear back. And I follow up maybe like 1 or 2 times, but I don't want to stop, right, and be annoying. So I'm just curious if anyone else experiences that, and what are their strategies around that?
100% feel the same thing. I've been doing a lot of open houses. You'll have the best conversations. I just had a couple this past Sunday. We visited for an hour. Did everything that Sharag's taught us, Kate's taught us. Felt like I said it was a personal human connection. And for the last 2 years, it's just been ghost.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd. And I also use this line that seems to connect with them. Like, has anyone taken the time to talk to you about the NAR lawsuit and how it affects you as a buyer? And most of the time they say no. And I'm like, oh, well, it's really important to have a buyer consult so you're well prepared in this market, because the DC market is highly competitive. And you need to be informed. So, but it's just strange. Just nothing. Crickets.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it takes a few different touch points. I try, without being like a stalker, I try to follow people on Instagram after like I've met them, and I've had people who follow me. And I try to make that like a part of almost like my soft pitch, especially when I only have a little bit of time with them in person. Being like, oh, best way to keep up with me or to chat with me is follow me on Instagram. You know, I post on there all the time, post a lot of good nuggets. This way, I do feel like at least if I have them on there, it's easy for me to like send a heart or like a smiley face or something, like react to their story, whatever it's called. And it's like a soft way of keeping in touch with them. And then I also know like when they're looking at my stories and when they're at least being primed with all the great things I'm sharing on there, my dog and all this stuff. But I do think like social media has been really successful for me post open houses to just at least stay up to date with people, or like if you can get them on your website, if you have like something like a market report you're always updating on there, or great blogs, try and like redirecting them to at least staying in touch with you instead of you having to follow up with them has been helpful. And then other times people just suck. And I'm like, wow, that really hurt. This is why I could never date right now. By the way, I was having this conversation with my friends the other day. I couldn't do this. I would be broken. Like my heart would be broken if I went on a date, thought I had a great connection, and the person ghosted me. Heartbroken. So thank God I'm never going to do that again. Even if whatever, I told him, I said, we have to stay married. I don't care what happens. We'll be good friends who live in a house together. I couldn't do it. It hurts my feelings. So part people suck, part how can we make sure they're keeping in touch with us? But does anyone else have something that works well for them to like get over that hump of the convert after you meet someone really anywhere, open house or whatever it is? No.
No, but I
Okay,
hear this,
I know.
all you hear
Yeah.
anymore is that story over and over and over again. It's just people.
People.
Everybody's said, every time we have a thing, people say, how do I get people to call me back? They just don't. You just have to, you can't take it to heart.
Think it's like, you know, if you get one person to actually call you back out of every 5 we have, great. And I also don't know if anyone else, but like sometimes it's awkward if I have like a few listings back to back and I keep seeing the same person. I'm like, yeah, remember when you didn't call me back? Yeah, sucks. 10 offers on this place. You should have called me back. Could have told you about it before.
I will say there's an agent in our office who told me not to lose the faith that 4 or 5 years ago he put someone on his newsletter for an open house, and like 5 years later, this buyer reached out to him. So maybe it's a long-term lead generator, or it just needs to germinate for a while.
I wanted to respond to the text message from someone just now that got bad
Yeah.
email and phone number. What I have started doing is I will call them right there and say, I just want to make sure you have my number on your phone and save my name so that I got the right number at the open house.
Thank you for saying that. That's gold, because
I
I
like
get a
that.
lot of fake numbers and emails. So that's a really great nugget you shared. Thank you.
Also
Yeah.
on open houses, at least to make sure, Wayne, that you don't get the fake stuff. I've been using my Blink card saying, what is your phone number so I can send you my digital business card? Then that's the one way. And then it'll ding on their phone right in front of me to know that at least they gave me a real phone number. Because most people, even if they're going to give you fake stuff or not respond to you, they're not going to go that level that they're going to give you a fake phone number when you ask to send them your digital business card. So that's been a little help.
Yeah.
I use the Compass app and I don't get fake phone numbers or emails.
I use that as well. And that's been,
My iPad.
yeah, same. Or like my phone on the app. I like that. I think people feel like it's going into somewhere that's going to like bounce back as red or something if they put
Yeah.
it in one.
And we just say that we need you to sign in. And they do before they tour the house. And it's been pretty successful. And like I said last week, I've been sending emails. Mind you, only one person has responded and we're touring her around. But none of them have bounced back. So they aren't fake.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's the digital thing. Maybe they're afraid to do that. Something wrong.
Yeah.
I think for us and those of you who are in California, because of this NAR settlement, they have to they have to have a sign-in sheet, and it has like 4 or 5 bullet points that we have to go over with them, and it has where they can sign in. So I don't really have an opportunity to ask them for their phone number because they write it in. So I'm just wondering what the people in California does, to get that information.
I'm in Northern California. I don't know if I don't have a specific sign-in sheet. Like I said, I've just been using that Compass app, the open house app. And I just have them sign in there and ask them if they're represented or not, and email and phone number. It's pretty straightforward. And that's it. They sign in and then it goes into your app and then you have it. You don't have to transfer it into anything. It's really nice.
Well, we're required. So how do you have a conversation with them about, you're representing the seller?
I'm just asking them to sign in. If it goes any further, we would talk about that.
Okay, because it's right there on the forms. We have to disclose, at point of contact that we represent the seller. And any information they share with us, we must share with the seller.
We weren't doing that. And I know we're a little bit different. Northern and Southern California are a bit different.
It's a car form.
Yeah. I'm not giving them information about the house. And I mean, I give them the specific information about the house, but not to represent them. 4-bedroom, 3-bath, because I'm the listing agent. I don't know. I'm gonna ask in my office what you're talking about, but it doesn't sound like that's what we're doing within our office.
Yeah, maybe check. I know right now it's all kind of up in the air of what we can do, and it could change next week too. We get another form. But talk to your managers first. just to make sure.
I just wanted to say something about Wayne. This is Colleen. We're in Massachusetts, and so we have the sign that says that we have to put that up at every open house that says that we represent the seller. So I don't know if you have that. You're required to put that sign up because we are in Massachusetts, and but when I use the app too as the Compass app. I love it because then all the information goes into the CRM. So it's really helpful. But what I always say is I go up and I go, hi, how are you? I'm calling Kelly. I'm the listing agent for this property. Would you please do me a favor and sign in? And I kind of stay near where they sign in. And I said, would you like me to do it or do you want to do it?
Mhm.
Because some people aren't comfortable with typing or whatever, But I do that. And then here we have, there's some tough people in the Boston area, and they'll go, well, I'm not going to sign in. And I usually come back and say, well, I understand, but this is private property. And in order to see the house, you're going to have to sign in. And then they just go, oh, okay. And they typically do it.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to do it, then they have to leave because it is private property. It's like, and if they challenge me, I'll go, okay, so how would you feel if somebody came into your house, you didn't know them, and they wanted to see your house? How would you feel about that? Wouldn't you want to know who was going through your house? And they typically will go, yeah, you're right. All right, so it's the same thing here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what goes on in people's heads, but I'm like, just sign in. Okay. That's what's going to happen here. Just sign in, be a normal human. We're going to be human about this entire interaction. makes people think a little bit more. All right, good. So we're already a few minutes over, but I'm happy we kind of got to wrap that up. So next week we'll start talking a little bit more about seller engagement, unless Shrug jumps on another fabulous topic that I think is better than that. But I do think this engagement kind of series, as I'm calling it, is really helpful for us to talk about, because we all do small things that I think make up like a really great experience. And we all have very similar foundations from CSC. So our conversations are typically going to start very similarly. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. As always, if you have any questions or comments or feedback, please email me or text me, call me, whatever you want to do. And I'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Have a good week.